The human brain is a fascinating thing. It's masterfully designed to ensure that life is maintained. One of the most salient features of this design is that its programs are not easily altered. This is actually an awesome feature, as without it, I probably would not be here to produce this video, and you wouldn't be here to watch it. This feature has kept us alive. It's a very good thing, but it presents a daunting challenge when it comes to doing something like losing weight. I will go into much greater detail as this series unfolds, but suffice it to say here that reprogramming the brain takes some very specific strategies that go way beyond going on a diet. It's meticulous, tedious, and time-consuming. It takes a basic knowledge of brain function, followed by specific steps, development of new codes, custom built to precisely fit the existing codes, and lots of practice. Reprogramming brain code is a skill that takes considerable training to master, but without such skill, efforts at losing weight are doomed to failure. There is a reason that success rates hover at 5% or lower. It's just that difficult. But I'm certainly not going to deliver that message without this message. It can be done, quite readily, if those steps are clearly explained and followed precisely. That is the intent of this video series. What I'm going to present to you in this series is a process that is based on over 15 years of research and design. The backbone of this method is a strategy that is known as cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. CBT was invented in the 1960s by a trio of psychologists, Aaron Beck, Albert Ellis, and Donald Meichenbaum, and was later placed on the map by David Burns in his 1989 bestseller, The Feeling Good Handbook. These men worked independently for the most part, but had one common idea. Changing thought can and must be done to create change in attitudes, emotions, habits, and behaviors. It is of historic significance to note that what these men were developing flew squarely in the face of neuroscience of the day. It was understood at the time that the human brain was rather fixed in structure by the time someone reached late adolescence or early adulthood. Thus, the idea that our thoughts could literally change the landscape of the brain were rather ludicrous. I'm not sure how much these early proponents of CBT really believed about changing the physical structure of the brain, but they surely believed that thoughts had a tremendous influence on mental well-being, and certainly believed that changes in thinking produce changes in beliefs and ultimately changes in our quality of life. We now know that thoughts do indeed change the physical structure of the brain. During the latter half of the 20th century, neuroscience began to catch up a bit. Old beliefs die hard, but hard evidence helps to grease the skids. Some of the momentum came from simple observation. Stroke victims, for example, were often able to regain partial or full use of a limb, even though the area of the brain formerly dedicated to such activity had been completely destroyed. Scientists wondered how such things were happening if the brain truly was fixed. We were years away from actually peering into a live brain and watching what was happening at the neurobiological level, but it seemed obvious to some that the brain was reallocating responsibilities and resources, literally changing the purpose and the function of neurons, basically reprogramming the system. Certain psychologists began to reason also that if the brain could change in such ways, then just maybe we could tap into this dynamic of the brain to reprogram neurological function for other purposes, for example, to help with depression. Dr. David Burns was one such person. In the 1980s, he experimented with CBT in his practice and found that by having his patients do certain written exercises to change the way they thought about things, they could literally eliminate their depressed thinking. In 1989, Dr. Burns published the Feeling Good Handbook, which has sold more than 4 million copies worldwide and has helped millions to leave their depressed thinking behind. In 1991, functional MRI imaging was introduced to the world at the 10th annual meeting of the Society for Magnetic Resonance in Medicine in San Francisco. It was the first demonstration of using the technology to map function of the brain in real time. In the 23 years since, neuroscience has done a complete 180. Neuroimaging has improved to the point where we can actually see what is happening when it comes to thought. This has literally changed the face of neuroscience and the face of therapy. We can now see, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that thinking itself changes the physical structure of the brain. So as it turns out, not only do thoughts matter, but they are matter, literally. They are physical structures, inputs, codes that program the system. They have size and mass and take up space. Now, why is all of this information so necessary to address the problem of weight loss? Simple. Thought is everything. Here it is in the simplified form. Overweight happens because of the faulty code written into the system, the human hard drive we know as the brain. This code is written by thought, the electrical impulses that write information to the human hard drive. The only way to change the condition of being overweight is to rewrite that code in the system. And this is done by rewriting, or more specifically, rethinking, every thought that pertains to eating. The new code must be derived from the old and must be written in such a way that it deletes the old code by canceling it out. And more about this later. CBT is the process of rewriting the programs and thereby upgrading the system. What follows on this series of videos is a full explanation of the art of reprogramming the brain, complete with detailed examples and step-by-step instructions. Losing weight is not about having willpower, or whatever that is. It is about upgrading the programs on the hard drive of the brain to support a desired outcome. No gimmicks, tricks, pills, or snake oil. Simply the arduous work of upgrading the most powerful computer on the planet, your brain.